Okay, so I'm doing this one off the cuff. I just wanted to talk a brief moment about how incentive structures, battle passes, free to play stuff, how that all sort of works, and sort of this problem that I think we're going to start to run into. Typically, I don't follow the space that closely because it's not a type of monetization that I think is really fair. I think it's kind of based on manipulative gambling psychology kind of stuff, and there's a lot of reasons to think that that's unethical or has a lot of moral issues, especially when you start getting into some of the science of how these things work and also the concept of like if you are trying to make your players addicted to your game and then you get angry at them when they start acting like junkies. Well, it's kind of like the drug dealer blaming the drug crisis for their problems. It's like, well, you made it, so what are you getting at? I think kind of where I want to go with this though is that I'm starting to see monetization models get really complicated, and it used to be people would say like, oh, there's a battle pass, or oh, there's like a store where you can buy things, and then it would be like, hey, here's like the earned currency and here's the premium currency sort of thing. But now I'm starting to see additional layers of complexity on top of this. I'm not going to say that these are going to be ineffective, but I think they might be creating an experience for the player that people may not truly realize, or they may think they're doing one thing, and while the experience that players are having is totally different. And my thought is coming down to the complexity of these battle passes, reward systems, whatever. As they're sort of becoming more complex, I think they're harder for players to understand. And I'm wondering if we're just going to get to a point where they've so finely tuned these models to what they think is something that people can really optimize for and understand. For the average player, and not the enthusiast, I mean the average, like the player that's not paying so much attention, I think what's going to happen is they're going to get in there and they're just going to see like all these bells and whistles going off, and so they're just not going to sit down and engage with that system. They're just going to play, and if they get free stuff, they get free stuff. And you're like, oh, that's cool. And essentially, this hyper complicated system just becomes, since it isn't understood, it essentially becomes random. There's this sort of black box system, or I should really call it a gray box, because you can figure out how it works, or how it mostly works. But for the most part, you're just trying to sit there and like play the game, and you get free stuff and whatever. And maybe there's like a small enthusiast crowd that's trying to sit there and like min max and game and essentially like play along with the monetization designers and try to like figure out the most efficient or most effective way to get all the rewards or whatever. But I'm just kind of curious because at some point what's going to happen is you're going to have the reward system be so complicated, you might as well just give it to people for free or for a random or on like a random schedule. There's no point to being so complicated, especially when the majority of the player experience is like it's random anyway. And I think this kind of comes back to a concept that can sort of happen in like really any game system. You can start to over design it and start to overbuild it or over tweak it for a particular experience, but only a very small number of people are actually going to engage at that level. Now, there's an element too of building because you want to create an experience that the enthusiast can enjoy, because the enthusiast is also your evangelist. But you have to be really aware of where you're spending the time, and I think especially in a monetization model, now you have like I have bigger questions. Like, well, who's really going to be your enthusiast, and do you want to necessarily promote that? Because they're essentially the people that are trying to like find the best deal for your product, and it's like you don't necessarily have an incentive for people to do that. And then you also have this other bigger question of how much are you paying the people to build that scheme, and do they really want to be doing that, or would you be served better by just making I would say, a superior or more popular sort of product? I think what this kind of comes down to is this fact of like we're starting to overdo it on the monetization. Not necessarily in the fact that we're nickel and diming people too much, but that our systems for nickel and diming have gotten so complicated and our metrics have gotten so nuanced that we've created so much data and so much complexity that nobody can really tease out what's going on in the player's head, because essentially nothing's going on in their head. They're just trying to play the game. That's all I really have to say about this one, but I do want to end this off by saying, like, it's probably better to just give people a simple monetization scheme in sort of a very fair sort of way. I think people will respond better to, a monetization model that they can understand, and that, they know that when they give you money, they're going to get gameplay back. Honestly, I think if you're going to sell someone something, you should be at least selling them like a little bit of experience, a little bit of a level along with it. It's a funny thing to do, but or a funny thing to sort of say now, but I think there's just something to be said for trying to be an honest sort of vendor, as opposed to getting your MBA and then trying to nickel and dime your customers to maximize profits in the short term. So yeah, if you want sort of the wrap up for this, I guess monetization strategies are bad. Making them really complicated probably isn't effective, and reject free to play. Just go back to buy to play. I don't know. Just keep it simple, man.